Hello, viewers. Welcome to Invert Channel. The moment it clicks. I am your host, Alex. Today, we are diving into a crucial discussion: the state of Africa continent. What is our role? What is our role? My role, your role, watching us, our viewers. How can we help Africa? How can we contribute to Africa? We are living in the West. Today, we'll be exploring untapped potential that exists within Africa. The resources, the talent, the human capability remain underutilized. The big question is how we that live in the West, Africans living in the Western world, contribute to rebuild the advancement of our continent. Why do we use our voice to spread negativity rather than the solution? So why are we not getting involved in politics, to economics development, to education, to industrialization, to technology, to science, to innovation, and to empower one another? Today, we are trying to bridge the gap between our presence in the West and our responsibility towards rebuilding Africa. Stay tuned. Good morning, Andrew.
Good morning, Alex.
How are you today?
Yeah, I'm doing good. And yourself?
I'm okay. So you've heard what I said about looking how the African, you and I, which our viewers, is also part of these discussions. How can we really contribute to the development of Africa? Yes, someone could say Africa is going through challenges. Africa is going through turbulences. Africa is going through a steps of political crisis and economic crisis, of course. But notwithstanding, the big question is: are we going to die and be buried here?
No way. No way. Me personally, no way, because I've always got my mind set on doing something back home in Africa. But as you said, we do have a lot of challenges that we need to address. We need to talk about. We need to be mindful of it. We cannot ignore all that challenges that we have back home in Africa. There's so much things going on, and I'm sure I'm not going to be the only one that talked about this or I've mentioned this before. But let's just face the fact and say the mindset of our brothers and sisters back home can be a little bit different to our mindsets. And me living in the West, I brought the same mindset with me when I came over. But over a period of time, I've been able to shape my mindset and continuing to work on it to shape it even further. So it's a process, it's a lifetime thing. It has to be with you. So yeah, there's a lot of problems that we do have back home. For example, try to start a small business back home to, help out a few people that can build things up so we can all benefit from each other. But they look at you from the West thinking, oh, you're sitting in the West and you're enjoying the atmosphere, the food, the
Yeah,
environment, everything else. And we are sitting back home in the sun
of
and
course. Yeah.
we have to be building stuff for you. So it's a bit twisted, mindset. But that's why we're here today to talk about it and see how best forward we can move and change it.
Yeah, thank you. You see, for me, it has. I if we start talking about this, you will see there's a lot of gazillion opinions of people
Yeah.
coming with different views and different experiences, and I pray and wish that I will live in my own lifetime to see where Africa is becoming the world power in terms of industrialization, the West to be coming to Africa to buy product, the West to be coming to Africa as a holiday resort, where they will come and spend on hard currencies, where employment, jobs, people will be living. Because one, if you look at it from the oil ramification, Africa has everything you can think of. We have the resources, we have the capabilities, we have the landscape, we have the weather, we have the good land, we have good soil, we have everything you can think of. Now, the challenges now is understanding Africa's current challenges now. If you look at West Africa, the issue of governance, the issue of corruption, the issue of economic instability. Now, and that will begin to give me a thought process to ask myself: is it that the leaders do not want any of this to happen in their country, or the leaders are being paid to keep their countries in this manner? Because in no half of the percentage, or even more half of those leaders, school abroad. They went to Western to study. Some of them had their educations overseas. Some of them have houses. They spend holidays, their children, their family. Now you now ask them, so when they get to that power, when they get to that opportunity, they don't do the same thing. So you keep imagining what the hell is going on. So if you now flip back to South Africa, South Africa has been to a lot of journey. If you look at is it the economic disparities between the white and the blacks? Is it the xenophobia? Is it the political turbulences in South Africa or East Africa? What do we have to say about Africa? East Africa, talk about infrastructure challenges, political interferences by the regional conflict. North Africa, identity crisis. Talk about governance issues and political. So all these things are man-made. All these challenges are man-made.
Of course they are.
See,
Of
they are
course they
man-made.
are.
It begin to beckon. It begin to beckon. What the hell is going on? Is it that we don't have human resources? We don't have intelligent ones. We don't have brilliant mind that could turn around the economic of Africa.
You see, the questions you're asking, I've been asking myself that for a very long time. And I've come to conclusion that I am not an expert on the political issues and all the other issues that we having. What I've come down to understand is we focus so much on on the political issues that we have. This is just my opinion.
Okay.
Whatever decisions they make, it can sort of probably change the shape of my life or probably the stuff that I do, but I cannot have the impact on my life unless I accept and allow it to. I'll break down what I'm saying to you. It's just a conversation that I was having with my very good friend a couple of days ago, and we're talking about the changes, what's happening in America, what's happening in even in UK, what's happening in Ghana, Nigeria, and so forth. And what I did say to him, which I stand on, is whatever policies or whatever laws or whatever they bring to the people, it can have an impact on you, but not a significant impact on you unless you allow it to. When I say unless you allow it to, if they're making laws, for example, they're making laws about jobs, or you have to work a certain time to nine to five, you have to do this, you have to do that. It's something that they've set, but you can set things for yourself as well. Do you understand where I'm coming from?
Yeah.
We
Got
for
your point.
example, in Africa, lots of the youth or the people focus on governments to make a change for them, and they are not taking the steps to make that change for themselves. How can you rely on the government to find you a job or to create jobs? If they're not creating the jobs, you can create for yourself. I did mention this in our last episode of stuff that I have to do or had to do when I was young to build myself up. I'll give you an example. I have a friend back home as well who is an electrician, and he does normally get contracts and stuff, and build up some stuff for people. But when he hasn't got no contracts, he just sits idle. And I went back home and I had a conversation with him. And he said he was telling me about the struggles that he's having. And back home we do have people that sell stuff in traffic or on the roadside and all those stuff. And
Okay.
oh yeah, I just throwed a simple idea to him, and I said there's a lot of people, because in the area where I live, there's a lot of build up traffic, and there's as in Africa, the weather is really hot, so a lot of people buy something we call pure water. It's water in a sachet, like in a bag. Made a suggestion or an idea that I throw on the table to see if he's going to grab onto it. And my exact words was, from the early morning to probably the afternoon, there's a lot of people driving on that roadside and they're buying those waters, but there's not enough people in that traffic selling the water. So I said to him, why don't you find probably handfuls that are running around, not having much to do, and why don't you invest some of the money that you've got from your contract and probably get is it a tray? I think it's a tray that they put the water in there to sell.
Yeah, it's a tray. It's a tray.
It's a tray. I said, why don't you probably find 5? Just start from 5. Why don't you start from 5 and buy the bag of water and give it to them to sell in the traffic? And they're selling because the weather is so hot that people want to drink water to drink, and they buy it. So if you have 5 of them, you start from 5 of them and you buy that bag for them to go and sell in the traffic. You're going to make some money. They're going to make some money, right? But if you start off by not thinking too much of the profit, but thinking of you're trying to help them find something to do and also benefit from the profits that you're going to get, but make sure that you're giving them most of the profit. You've got nothing to lose. You're going to break even. You got nothing to lose. You're going to get your money back eventually, but you're creating something for yourself and for them. And once you've done that and you've been successful with the 5 people, I guarantee you, it's a word of mouth. They're going to bring the next 5 of their friends or colleagues that are not working as well, that haven't got, and say, I've been able to sell maybe a pure water or a bag of water, and I've earned so and so amount of money. So I want to bring you in so you can also earn that kind of money. Imagine if you start something like that and you've got 5 and the 5 recommend 5 and the 5. Very soon, that stretch of road, you probably have maybe 15 or 20 people selling that kind of water on the road. And he just thought about it and he said, it's a really good idea, but I don't want to do it. I'm not interested. So where I'm coming from with this story is, we're relying on the government to create a job for us, but we are not ready to even create stuff for ourselves. So that's the big problem on its own.
Yeah. You see, going by what you're saying, there's a level of disagreement. I'm going to disagree with you and also agree to a certain extent. Yes, when you flip back to your mindset, you'll find that an average young African is all about depending on go to university or going to college and get a job and get paid every month. That is the way most of us we are raised or probably designed or wired. But now the question now is, if you look at the West, where you and I are residing, you find that you don't necessarily need to go to school. The moment you finish from your secondary school aspect, you can either the government has an enabling environment whereby you either want to go to university, or you want to go to college, or you want to go into apprenticeship. And that apprenticeship is being formalized. They've now broken that apprenticeship into 2. Level 1 could be someone who doesn't want to who doesn't have his or her GCSE can go into what they call it. I've forgotten. It's more of a maths and English and other subject, more of a practical. Then you have other apprenticeship that you must have maths and English. Now, and you find that most of all these young chaps, when they finish it, they will, of course, the system will drive them in such a way they become management trainee. They will go into management courses and become a manager and start overseeing someone who has gone through universities, 4 walls of universities, and supervising them and even managing them. So if you now come to Africa environment whereby one, the environment is, we don't have an able environment whereby a young man, a young girl can think. That critical thinking, we've missed that aspect. So when a young man, you cannot think, what they relies on, he just literally finish from university and get a job. And the job is not there. So for them to think, so that's why if you go back to Africa, you see 30 years, 35, 40 years of age, still living with parents, hanging around, still living with parents, living with family house. Why? Because there's no job. And the person cannot think of, let me create a job for myself. Like you just said, let me create a job for myself. Let me do somebody. Now, the point now is creating a job for yourself. Is there any scheme? Is there any SME scheme? Is there any support from government? Because if you look at all this Western world, there is, by and large, there's a lot of support from government in terms of scheme, in terms of loan, in terms of finances, in terms of supporting them grants. There are all different types of support system that make them to thrive in whatever they're doing. But it's not the same thing in Africa. Yes.
You see what you're saying. I understand what you're saying, but I want us to concentrate of Africa, because that was the beginning of our conversation. That's what our conversation is centered.
I'm giving you reference. I'm giving you reference.
Yeah, and I understand your reference, but you did mention something from the beginning of we living in the West. What are we doing to help change Africa? And I just gave you the example of we sending probably money to people back home, trying to build them up. So I'm sure you probably have done that before. And I'm sure the viewers, most of them have done that. Yes, we don't have the support of government. We don't have the systems in place to do those stuff. But we live in the West. We do support them in a lot of ways, right? You're saying people are over the age of 30 living with their parents. It could be your brother, it could be your cousin, it could be whatever. An example I've given you about this gentleman that I've thrown just an idea to him, which I'm not gonna. It might make sense to a lot of people. It might not make sense to anyone. But me living in the West, throwing an idea to you like that, if you are ready and you grab onto it, there is guarantee, and we always do that. How much is it going to cost me to give you that money to start that business? Sometimes we give them money without even expecting it back from them. And as you said, the mindset, that's why we're here today and we're talking about that. We do talk to them every time, but their mindset is, you're living in the West and I'm living in Africa. And you're trying to make me do something like this. But they're not thinking outside the box. They're not thinking, well, I don't have the money to start this sort of business, but I've got a cousin, I've got a brother living in the West that is able to probably send me $200, $300, or whatever dollars it is. Just take that money and start something small. They don't want that. They don't want that.
So what do they want then if they don't want that?
Well, to me, what I see is they're looking at you sitting in the West and they're thinking, okay, you're there and I'm here. I want to travel. So whatever you do for me is not going to be enough. They want you to bring them over.
So you see, let me come in there. So you mentioned which I agree with you, because the challenges here is we that living in the West, we end up sending handouts. Yeah, we
Yeah.
send a handout to people back home, and most time the handout could be probably someone could say, "Oh, can you send me $1,000? I want to go into this business. I want to go into this business." But the trouble is, by the time they go into such businesses, before you know what's happening, the business has collapsed.
Why
Either
did the business collapse?
good question. So now I mentioned about enabling environment, and I also mentioned, and you mentioned about the mindset. So some of them, if you bring these two together, they become a big elephant. So the mindset is you open a business and you think the business is going to start thriving in the next couple of months. You start eating from the business. You start eating from the little capital given to you to run a business. And the business, there's no business can ever thrive when you start encroaching into that capital given to you.
You mean
One,
hand to
then
mouth?
exactly. So you start feeding from that little investment. So whatever business you're going into, the business has not even stand. You are using from that money is you pay your rent, you pay your bills, you look after your family, and you want the business to stand. It can't stand. Of course, this is simple. This is simple economics. It cannot stand. Then looking at the other mindset. The mindset now is when the business fails, that is it. The next thing that they will now call you, oh, brother, I want to come over there. That is the mindset. They want to come over. So they think, so if everybody, see, until we that live in the West, until we understand that the, the youngest population, according to United Nations data, Africa has the world's largest population in terms of the young, bright people. And imagine if people start coming over. I don't have problem people coming over. But now, what are we living here? What are we doing? Because the minerals resources, Africa economy still remains dependent on foreign aid. You could see what happened. You could see the recent executive law Donald Trump just passed about stopping aid. Because, of course, stopping aid in Africa, and most African countries start complaining, especially people from Nigeria start complaining. And even the citizens came and we are so happy and jubilating. Some of the Nigerian citizens on the TikTok, some of them are happy. Yes, stop the fund because we don't know what the aid is for, because the aid never get to the final
Yes,
destination.
of course. I was about to say that. I
It
was
doesn't get
about
to the final destination. So now the question now is, we that live here, you and I, when you mention about you're not expertise in politics, which is fine. Which area? Where are you? What is your expertise? What are you bringing? What are we doing here? We that live in the West, how can we unite? How is our money circulating amongst
I think
ourselves?
first of all, we have to start with everything, start from ideas, mindsets. Just the basic. They make you basic smart. First of all, if we're not thinking that way, if we're not shaping our mindset of coming together to do those stuff, nothing is going to move. We living in the West. We've mentioned this in our previous episode that we don't trust each other to come together to do stuff. There's been a few things that I've been thinking about over the years, and I'm saying to myself, if 5, 10 people come together as Africans and say, okay, you know what? Yeah, we're making a few money. And the system in the West as well is not a joke. They have to understand that. Because whatever money you're getting, most of us are living hand to mouth too over here because the cost of living is high everywhere. And we pay rent weekly or monthly. Back over there, they pay probably 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, and they don't have to pay anything else. But we are coughing out money every week or every month to pay money, to pay rent or to pay our utility bills and all those stuff. So there's a lot coming out from us already in a way. But the ideas that keep coming into my mind is if we can be able to come together as one over here and take whatever we're getting or whatever we're building back home to also help them out, it will work. But the question is, the two minds don't align together. That is the problem that we have. That's why I've given an example, and I'm saying, and you talked about hand to mouth. You're making money and you're sending it to somebody back home, trying to help them set a business, and they are using that money to set that business and still eat from that business. And still, so the problem we have here is not just money, it's the way we think and the way we process things. So I think first of all, we have to stop doing those stuff and start setting to start creating groups and coming together and shaping our mindsets before we can even get to the bottom of what is happening. It's
Yeah,
very
yeah.
it's very, 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 very simple. But the thing is, we haven't focused enough on doing what we're talking about, setting groups, coming together, setting a community, coming together, talking about our issues and all that. Everybody is busy chasing the money. Everybody is busy looking for that money. Can you
Survivor,
blame them?
survivor,
Can,
survivor,
yeah, but can you
survivor,
blame them? You can't blame them. But
survivor.
we cannot just concentrate on our problems. We need to concentrate on our solutions too.
You see, yeah, you have a very you made a good point. You see, I've made when it clicks when it clicks to me when it clicks to me was a couple of years back when I realized is that you see you can't get it all. You
No,
can't achieve everything you want to achieve. But the most important thing is how would you pursue your passion? What legacy are you going to leave behind? How can you influence? Because you see, knowledge knowledge. Let me put this way: generation upon generation, they migrate or they grow based on the knowledge, or they pass on baton of knowledge to another generation based on the knowledge they've had previously. So knowledge is based on how people what people have learned, what people have unlearned to learn new things, and that's how we grow. Our forefathers, our parents of knowledge was what they knew or what they understood at that point during that time. So we at our own period now, at our own now, what are we leaving behind? What knowledge are we leaving behind for people coming after us? What knowledge? Now, the world, whether you I believe you agree with me, the world depends on Africa resources so much that you see what is happening around the whole of Africa continent. There is nowhere, there's no economic instability in any of African country. Forget about the Buhaha GDP and the statistic nominees. They always see you see on the screen and the statistical data they analyze. But how does that reflect to an average human being? How does that impact to a child in the community, to a child in a rural area, it's a child in a village? So now this might be have a knock-on effect on the wealthy people and all the big giant business investors in Africa. But an ordinary child, when he or she cannot feed, or parents, then whatever data statistic you're bringing, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't reflect. It doesn't correspond to what you're saying. Now, Africa hubs, the innovation, the technology is growing. It's growing. Now, we that live in the West, take for example now, can you do business with an Egyptian? Can you do with someone can you sit down, call an Egyptian guy, call a Moroccan, call an Nigerian person, sit down, interact with them, let's come together, let's do it. Can you? No, because that identity segregation is there. But you're an African, you're all African, you can't. So now, the more all this is happening, our brain, the brain drain, the weaknesses, the brain drain, the intellectual capacity in Africa is migrating to West. Everybody's migrating. So now, a lot of us live here. We have quality educations. We have quality work experience. We're exposed to advanced technology. But instead of us using those capacity in our field, in our area, to start coming together, I envy how the Asian and the Jewish community, I envy them a lot.
You see, I talked about this years ago, and I'm going to mention it again. It's just an idea that keeps floating in my head. And I'm saying, for example, you talked about people living in the West have got the education, they've got the skills, they've got everything that they need to support Africa. And I did mention about I'm not an expert when it comes to politics and all those stuff. And we've always have conversation between us talking about African leaders and our leaders, this and our leaders that. What was coming in my mind is if I was a leader in Africa, what I would do is sign an executive order or build a system that will bring people from West to Africa. And some of the examples that I had in mind was we do have holidays here in the West when we work in our 9 to 5 jobs. Some have got 21 days or so I'll say 21 days, which is probably some have got a 4 weeks holiday in the year. And I'm talking about probably nurses, doctors, teachers, and all those things. Imagine if our leaders back home have put up a system to say, okay, the nurses that are living here, not everybody is going to buy into the idea, but the nurses that live here, we need them to come train the nurses back home. So when you take your holidays from here and you come back to probably Ghana, Nigeria, Ethiopia, Egypt, wherever you're from in Africa, the government has set up a system for you to come over and probably work for maybe 1 week or 2 weeks out of your holiday, and they'll pay you good money just to support the people over there. Can you imagine how much skills will be taken back home to Africa?
Yeah, I agree with you.
You got a doctor that will take holidays and probably sitting over here or probably going to other European countries for holiday. Yeah, holiday is holiday. But for us to build something back home, if we want to bring politics into it, our political leaders over there, I don't know what they think about or what they don't think about. But
Let me tell you.
we all have eyes and we all can see. But if you're a leader and you want to build your country up, you need to do stuff. You need to have policies, things that can, bring people home. We don't have all those stuff. So this typical example I'm giving you about setting up something that can bring them when they are on holiday or when they have probably taken some leave from work, they can come over to our various countries and support the workers or support the people that are in professional careers, their professional careers or whatever. They can come over there and you give them some good incentives to come over there to train them, but still earn some good money from it. I'm sure we'll be transferring all those skills back to other people.
Yeah. That is that's one solution. And you see, the country that does a similar thing, which is that basically known for medical scientists, are Colombia. I think Colombia, if I'm right, if I'm right, Colombia, they export doctors. They export doctors. Yeah.
Yeah.
Trainees. So this is the skills now. So let me now give you. So I mentioned about I envy the Asian community and the Jewish community, the way they invest. Maybe probably we can learn a lesson, one or two from them. So let's critically there are this couple of issues I want us to critically analyze. The African mindset is one of the biggest problem. One of the biggest problem we that live in the West. So why do we speak negatively about Africa? I'm going to tell you this. In my place of work, I happen to sit amongst a group of people, and we start having a chat. And one of the a young chap, an African, by the guy is from the northern part of Africa. The way the way he was slandering Africa in the midst of the West in my presence. That was a conversation we were having. I wasn't part of the conversation. But the way it was, all the negative things that come, because if you look at all the media, all this West is promoting, they have their own challenges, they have their own bad side, but the media promote them positively. So you sat down in the canteen and all you could say is, yes, we know Africa is going challenges. We know there's a corruption. We know there's instability. We know there is ignorance from the government. We know all these things. But you have to, what do you use your time, your resources? What do you do that live? Why can't you? We've been through a lot. Why don't you use your capacity, use your talent, your gift, and promote and speak positive, not illness. So I was provoked when he was saying all this corruption, saying about this. So when he was saying that, and the people who were saying it, they were just watching and looking at this guy. In their head, they might saying this guy must be very stupid. Look at the way he's selling off.
Yeah, but he's not the only one. Look, and the problem is coming from him.
So where I was sitting, I was uncomfortable. So I stood up and I went there. I wasn't part of the team. I stood up and I went there. I interjected the young man. I said, no, hold on. I interjected. I said, the people you are speaking to, the people you are explaining all this, are they telling you they're not aware of most of the things you're saying? Are you telling me they're not aware, or their country or the country where they're living do not have the same systematic problem? They do have, but some of them, the media covers it up. Then why are you now repeating something? Don't you think that you are even indicting yourself? Don't you think you are even making yourself look more lesser in front of them? And I challenged the young man. I said, no, we all know this. Like you usually said, we know the problem. What is the solution? What is the solution? So the need of overcoming these internal divisions. You can't do a East African and West African cannot come together individually, and that's why China. That's why China is overtaking Africa. And let me tell you, if we're not careful, we live in West. 20 years from now, we'll become tenants in Africa. But China must have bought the whole of Africa and be renting property to you and land. Because what does China do? A Chinese from the eastern part of Chinese, west, north, south, they don't literally need to know each other, but they apply what they call group economics. That is the strategy. They apply group economics. They come together. That people coming together, they have the same interest. They have the same stake interest, and they come together and they run ideas.
You see, the coming together thing that we always talk about is a big issue, and I'm sure everyone has it in their country. But one of the solutions that I always talked about is, yes, we cannot ignore or not look at the bigger picture. We should always look at it, but we should always start small. We should start from our various homes. I always talk about this, and I'm not going to stop talking about it. To change thousands or millions, you have to change yourself first. So we have to concentrate on ourselves and work on ourselves before we can even extend it to the world. So when we discuss stuff like this, I don't want us to always, it's good to touch on, the bigger picture, the main problems and all that, but we shouldn't take ourselves out of the problem, because we are also problems, and we are the main problems, which is ourselves. First of all, we hate ourselves, we don't love ourselves, we don't work together, we don't trust ourselves, we don't believe in ourselves. So these are the basic stuff that we ignore when we're looking at the bigger picture. The picture of the African problem that we have is there. Everyone can see it. As you're talking about your work colleague that was talking so negative about Africa, everyone knows it. If I was there at that moment in time, what the question I would have asked him is, whatever is talking about, is it not part of the problem? It's part of it. We're all part of it. But when we making a list of problems, we never include ourselves into that list.
You see, yeah. You see, let me take you back to what you also emphasize, which I've also mentioned. It still lies down mindset. Yeah, I belong to a platform whereby 90% of what they discuss in that platform it's as if the same group or the same set of people that were discussing those ideas in the platform. We are still living in Africa.
Hmm.
The kind of thing they utter. You see, Africa has it pains me sometimes tears. Africa has gone through a lot of psychological trauma in the last 50 years or more.
And we still are going through it. We're
We,
still
we've,
going
gone,
through it.
we've gone through a lot. We are bleeding every day, especially people back home. And now we that live in the West, we cry tears. We go through challenges. We work hard. For you to become a manager in the place you work in the West, you must work extra hard. You must serve your colonial masters. You must do extra. So for you to be recognized, sometimes you pick some crazy shift for you to fit in. You go in the workplace. You must try to work hard. Anything your counterpart is doing, or your colleagues is doing, who is not even an African, you will do extraordinary to be recognized, to be appreciated. We've been through a lot, and we're still going through. Now, the effect of all this self hate, jealous, division. Africa is good coming together, drink, eat, throw parties, and do. That's what we're good at. So now, in that midst of that throwing party, eating and drinking, there are some of us amongst us who are going through financial challenges. We will turn our eye blind. We will not see them. Some of us are going through immigration challenges. We will turn our eyes, we will not see them. Some of us are going through divorce and marriages issue. We will turn our eyes, we will not see them. But we know them, but we will not get involved. We will not be part of our problem. But when it comes in you know, times of throwing party and showing off the car you even bought on finances, the car, to show off our car, to show off our goodies, to show off everything, we are reckoned for that. Now the point is to boil down to the mindset, the psychological effect. So that colonial history, that Western media narratives that Africa is, maybe probably we should change our narratives. Instead of saying Africa is poor, Africa is rising. We should just forget about this. Africa is poor. Africa is rising. Africa is bouncing back. And the people that will start that journey, our mindset need to be changed from here. You don't need to have everything. Whatever you don't need to have everything. You don't need to achieve everything. You need to. At the end of the day, one beauty thing about life is one day we're going to die. One beauty thing. It's a beauty thing because one day your rest, your struggling, what you're pursuing, one day will end. Now the question is, end. How will it end? Is it going to end as an old age, or is it going to end in glory? You see, it's embarrassing that a Nigerian cannot come together and do things with a fellow African.
I see that happening. It's gonna happen. It's
You see,
just a process. It's timing. But we have to start working on ourselves first. We need to start doing that. You see, I mean, there's a lot of groups, as you talk about, there's a lot of groups out there too that you can join, that you'll get value from it. You'll get a lot of things from it. It boils down to the individual. You have to pick and choose. You
yeah,
have
any,
you have to pick and choose.
yeah,
Because in there's this saying that we say in Ghana that in if you be a mensa, pardon my language, meaning in every household there is a black sheep in the every household. Okay,
yeah,
so in every gathering that you have, there's definitely going to be some good coming out from it or bad coming from it. It's not all that, it's not all good, it's not all bad. You just have to pick and choose as an individual. You have to know what's right for you. You have to know what sits well with you. You have to know what resonates with you. You have to be ready to to make a change for yourself or to look for that change. You see, there's a saying that we always say that you can't always have what you want. I believe that saying is wrong. You can always have what you want. If you really want it, you'll make time for it. You'll do whatever you can to get that. You see? But most of the times, we look at things like, oh, this doesn't matter. This doesn't matter. Everything matters. Everything matters in life. And you know where we are from, we we are so reluctant to our and we're so ignorant to our problems. Even though we know, we just ignore them. And that's not going to fix it for us. That's not going to. It's not going to. Mindset is very, very, very important for me. I always talk about that and I'll never stop talking about that because that's the beginning. Look, everything that we have in life stems from our mindset. Whatever position or situation you are in life now, it's based on how you're thinking. And I'm not talking about how you're thinking now, it's how you were thinking previously. So it's your previous thinking that's got you to where you are now. And if you want to go forward in life, if you change your thinking from now, that's what is going to take you to the next level in life. So you can never do away with that. We can never
Yeah,
do away with that. And I'll tell you what, thinking is also very, 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 very difficult because sometimes you sit down and you just want to think. And when I'm talking about thinking, it's not just thinking out of thin air, it's thinking on paper. Whatever you think about, write it down. Whatever ideas come in your mind, just write it down. Reflect on it. Go back to it. Revisit it. There's so many things that we don't do.
yeah, yeah. You see, how would I put it? Is a big factor in going forward. Our mindset, because as we discussed in our previous um, episode, we mentioned about the youth. You know, we there's one of my friend that says that always crack jokes whenever we have a chat. He said the Christians want to go to heaven, but none of them want to die.
You want to die.
Yeah, we want to go to heaven, but none of us want to die. You see, I rather die young than die old. Let me. I know. Let me explain to you the reason why I said I rather die young than die old. What I'm trying to say is this: I rather die young is giving everything I'm made up of. Yeah, here on
Yeah,
earth, what God designed me, how I'm being wired, designed here to do on earth. I rather give all and in the process die than die at the age of 90. And that 90, I'm part of the protege that caused problem in Africa. I'm part of the problem. You know, most of all these old elderly people, they are the ones destroying Africa. So I don't want to live that age, get to 80, 90, only to be remembered as a group of people that cause mayhems, destroy life, proteges of destructions, instabilities, political destructions, lives. I don't want to. I rather die at the age of 30, 35, 40, making an impact. So now we've discussed about the solutions. Now let's look at the solutions further. We talk about political involvement. We talk about economic development. We talk about educational and industrialization. We talk about technology and innovation. We talk about empowerment. Now, if there's anything like next life, if I need anything like next life, I would rather be a policy strategist. You know why? Policy makes a nation destroy a nation. Policy, yeah, makes a nation and destroy a nation. And that's what is happening. That's what's happening in Africa. The biggest challenges we have is we have leaders, which you and I, we're not getting into politics. We think politics is dirty. Politics is for the old people. Politics is bad. Politics is
mm,
this. I, for one, I don't have temperament for politics. If I get into politics, I will stand on the truth, and I will speak the truth the way it is. This is me. If you don't like it, you can go and hung something, or just go and hug your places. I don't really care. I will speak to the truth. So we are running away from politics and policies. Policies is one of the key that transform the entire country. Policy. We don't want to get involved. You see, if we that live in the West start coming together, pushing for accountability leadership, supporting Africa, pushing for change, encouraging the diaspora engagement, not the kind of platform where you belong to the platform. What we'll be discussing is going to be ethnic bigotry. We'll be discussing about ethnic bigotry. We'll be discussing about identity. We'll be discussing about your ethnic background, about culture. No, before you belong to this culture, or before you identify yourself with this certain ethnic background, you are a human being. A human being. Why don't you see yourself as a human being? Why don't you see yourself as a mirror? Mirror yourself as a human being. If I see my Ghanaian brother, or my South African sister, or my Ethiopian brother, or my Cameroonian brother, I don't see them as a Cameroonian. I don't see them as those identities. I see them as a human being. As a human being. That's the way we should be thinking. If we start seeing them as such, then we can start coming together. We can start coming together. Because there's nothing, we can never run away. The fact remains, however many years you want to live here on earth, however how many passports you claim you have, the fact remains, Africa is our home. We've been through a lot. I want to start thinking, how can we support in our capacities? How? You see, how can we support?
It's just by building communities, building communities that will focus on solution more than the problems, because we all know the problems. We know they exist. We know they are there, but I think for us to get to it, we have to start working on ourselves. We have to take the time to work on ourselves. You see, there's this saying that I heard from Jim Rohn. It says you have to work harder on yourself than you do on your job. You have
That's a
to
good
work
point.
harder on
Yeah,
yourself than you do on your job. And a saying like that is deep enough. And it's all about how you perceive it, your how you take it. Because a saying like that, I'll always sit down and find a different meaning to it. First of all, when I heard it, I thought, what, if I go to work, I'm gonna be relaxed and not really work hard, but work on myself. Then I got another understanding of it. If you go to work, you give your all whilst you're there, because you're there. That's what you're there for. You're there to be paid to do the job. So do it properly. When you come out of it and you come to your own time, you also work on yourself properly. So there's a lot of understanding. Anytime I hear something like that, there's a lot of things that I take away from that. And the best one that I've taken out of it now that I'm holding with me is every moment counts. If I'm at
yeah,
work, I'm at work. If I'm at home working on myself, I'm at home working for myself or working on myself. But most of the times we go to work with a different mindset of, okay, well, this work place that I am at is not for me, or I didn't build that up. So I'm not going to really pull my strings or do what I've got to do. Then if you're not 100% where you are, then you need to come out of it. You need to come out of it, because if you don't, one thing you have to understand is if you build something good for somebody, somebody else will build something good for you. If you go somewhere else and you want to destroy something that somebody's built or taken years or decades to build, somebody's going to also want to come and destroy what you're also building. So it's all those things as well is also a mindset thing. You know, you cannot go and destroy somebody's years or decades of building something for you to be able to gain something from it. You cannot go and destroy that and expect somebody to come and build yours for you, or somebody to rebuild what what you build. You see, so it's all about the way we think.
Yeah,
That goes a long way.
yeah, yeah. Thank you very much for your submission. As we wrap up today's discussions, I just want our viewers, let's take a moment to reflect. Africa is not just a landmass; it is our identity. Whether you believe it or not, it's our identity, who we are. No matter what your profession is, in your capacity, in wherever country you are, Africa is our heritage. It's our responsibilities. Living in the West should not disconnect us from our duty to rebuild and develop Africa. We must move beyond envy, self hate, division. Instead, let us harness our potentials, our resources to uplift the continent. The moment it clicks, we realize that Africa's future depends on us. Thank you for tuning in to the moment it clicks. Stay engaged, share your thoughts, and let's work together for a better Africa, where we strive to develop our continent. Watch out for in our next series, where we explore about how we can sustain Africa future, how we can start collaborating on Africa growth. Until next time, I am your host, Alex. Stay tuned, stay united, and let's make Africa great. Bye.